Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We welcome you to this regularly scheduled meeting of the Vader City Council. Hopefully, maybe the last official meeting of the council in 2018. We will officially call this meeting to order at 6 p.m. on this, the 13th day of December 2018. We will now invite our city clerk to do the roll call for us.
Judy Costello. Here. Jason Daly.
Here.
Joe Shy.
Here.
Mike Parsons.
Here.
Leona Sander Hunter. Here. And Mayor Ken Smith.
Also present. So we have a full quorum on the council this evening. Thank you all for being here. We'll now invite all to please rise for our Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Parsons, would you lead us?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, we'll proceed with the mayor's report, following up on the previous council meeting, in which we were informed that Pastor Durham might have some information for us about the availability of the Eastern redbud maple trees. So when we got to reaching out to him about a week and a half or so ago, we discovered that he's on vacation. And his secretary, Corrine, doesn't have the information, and so she suggested we simply wait until he gets back. So that's all I can report on the trees. Following up on the information we received about, or the interest there is in getting signage to designate the school zone and put the speed signs up. So we did reach out to the state, and we were informed that there are two options. One, they can get signs up at limited expense to the community, but we would, in as much as it's school property, we would have to have the school engage in a study, an analysis for that signage. So the state won't do anything until the school district provides that analysis for us to give to the state. So we are going to set that in motion. And, we are not sure how long it's going to take, but that's the step. The other element of that, the state indicated that cities have an option to put flashing lights, for example, across 506. But the state won't pay for that, and generally it would cost about $30,000 to install such flashing lights. And so we'll have to weigh that option. But for now, I can tell you that we'll proceed to get the appropriate signage. That's where we're at in that particular issue. Lastly, I wanted to mention that we did get the tractor back from the repair facility, and it is now functioning. It's still got its issues, but it works sufficiently well that our public works employee can accomplish what he needs to with it. So we're happy about that. And once he got the tractor back, I can report that he was able to complete the backfill on the water line that he extended, the 1,200 feet. So we've repaired that ongoing recurring problem, which is a very positive development.
Did we have an actual cost on what it cost us to do that?
Yeah, what was the cost? Did you get the
For the water line? Oh, I haven't told him that, but I can provide that for you if you get it.
Yeah, but it wasn't excessive because we did it.
John did it.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I can report too, though, that we are having an emerging issue with some surface water that is bubbling out of the manhole cover on 10th and B, if you've noticed that. But we discovered it today, and so we're in the process of trying to fix it. John is on it. We're acquiring an inexpensive pump that will pump it out, and then...
I have one.
You have one?
I have one.
Well, okay, well, the city would need to use our own equipment to do that. I appreciate the offer, but have we acquired that pump yet?
No, in the morning he's supposed to pick it up.
Yeah. It'll be about $300, but it'll enable him to pump enough water out so that we can try to unclog it. It appears that there's some debris that's accumulated and it's blocking it, and that's what's causing it to come up. So not a huge problem, but one that we're addressing. You were asked by residents in the community.
We have no idea what causes bubbling up in a manhole.
Yeah, well, it's blockage of the water line that carries it towards the Olakwa.
And it is surface water, rainwater, it's not sewer,
Right.
so don't worry.
Yeah.
But surface water still.
Yeah.
So I bring that to your attention. But that represents the essence of the mayor's report. We'll proceed now with the council comments or reports. Anything to share?
Obviously,
Oh,
hand
yes,
in the
okay.
air, obviously, folks.
Go ahead.
Does anybody bet on me that I'm not going to say anything? No, please. At our last meeting, and this is kind of the mayor and I talking.
Okay.
At our last meeting, we had a conversation about how many people we thought
Yes.
might be below the average
Yes,
of
curiosity.
38,000 or whatever the
Yeah.
thing was.
Yeah.
I have this little handy dandy map I got. And my little red dots represent households with about $1,200 coming in
$1,200 a month?
a month. And I have about 50 on here with my little red dots. So I wanted to share that
Perfect.
with you, just to let you know that there are more than 10 out there. And a lot of people have actually called me and said, hi, I want to be on the map. And if anybody's passing out $38,000 incomes, they would like a part of that. But that would be good too.
Perfect.
So there's
I'm sure they
that.
would.
So anyway, I
Do you
wanted
have
to
the,
share that.
Names? Where did you get that information?
This map came from there, and I basically know most of these folks.
They confirmed their income with you. All 50.
No,
Okay. Well, hey, it's good to know.
but
Let's
I
say
feel comfortable.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, I feel comfortable that there's more than 10. So I wanted to share that with you. And then one other item that we discussed, and on our budget we had $9,000 and some change for the city attorney for the 2018 year. Okay? On our vouchers for the whole year vouchers, it comes to $16,850. For urban, I'm talking about urban law. That's our city attorney. So if I have all my monthly things, so if you go back and you look at each of those, I went down and that totals that. So I just kind of want to get some clarification on the budget line item for the city attorney of only $9,000 plus, and all of these vouchers that we actually, the 5 of us, look at every month and sign, totaled up more. So just looking for some clarification on that, please.
Did you inquire of the city clerk
No.
already with this?
No, because it's all right here. She gave it to me month after month after month.
Okay. But,
And in our budget, it says 9,000 and some
so
change.
you're going to bring this up in our agenda?
City
of the
council.
budget?
I can.
Yeah.
I can. I just wanted to do it with you because you and I talked about it. We had this conversation at our last meeting
Yes.
about the attorney and that kind of thing. So I just wanted
I'll
to
be
share that
intrigued
as a
to
council
see.
thing.
Sure.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And other than that, that's it.
Okay. Do we have anybody else?
Well, yeah, we're still doing the toy drive, the tree drive down at the Low Crane Cafe for the food baskets and the gifts that are going out for Christmas time this year. So we still have some names on the tree, and there's plenty of opportunity for donations. So.
Still have names on
Good.
the tree.
Thank you. Last call? council comments? Okay, well, let's proceed with the agenda. We'll proceed with the agenda approval.
I'm shutting
Okay, thank you. For the city council meeting for tonight. Wait, council action.
I make a motion to approve the city council meeting for 12/13/2018 as written.
Okay, we've heard the motion submitted by Mrs. Costello to approve the agenda for this evening's council meeting as written. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Mrs. Hunter. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Okay, that motion is carried. Minutes for our previous meeting and our workshop and meeting from the two previous council meetings.
Any written comment? I was not at 11/8 meetings, so I will not be able to vote on that, but I was at the other.
Okay. Duly noted.
I'll make a motion to approve the city council meeting minutes for 11/8/2018 and city council workshop and meeting for 11/30/2018.
Okay. Mr. Parsons has submitted a motion to approve those meeting minutes as written, as noted. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Mrs. Costello.
Can she second if she's not going to vote?
I need to vote on half of it.
Yeah.
I need to vote on half
Good.
of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I won't vote.
I think.
I'll second.
Okay. Seconded by Mr. Daly. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed?
No.
Okay. The motion carries. Voucher approval. The first half of December 2018.
I'll make a motion to approve the vouchers for the first half of December 2018 in the amount of $60,361.81.
Okay. Mr. Shai submitted a motion to approve the voucher totals for the first half of December as noted. Second.
I'll second it.
Seconded again by Mr. Daly. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? That motion is carried. Now our special reports. We do have Deputy Chiefsman with us this evening. We'll turn the time over and the podium to you for your report.
So for November, which was a nice quiet month, 220 citizen contacts, 7 calls on shift, 4 calls off shift, for 11, total of 11 calls for the month. 9 traffic stops, 1 infraction, and 1 misdemeanor arrest, which is suspended, driving while suspended.
Okay. It was a quiet month, all things considered.
Yeah, nice holidays.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
There's been some rumor out there about car prowling and packages getting stolen off porches. Is that
Not
real
something
or
that- We haven't
nothing?
reported any.
Okay?
Okay, any other thoughts? Thank you very much. Very succinct report. Okay. With that, let's proceed with our city business agenda. Item number 1 is council to consider ordinance 2018-05. The ordinance essentially mandated by the state of Washington to update business license regulations. I know that you had received the contents of that ordinance some time ago and hopefully had a chance to read it and know that it's going to be an essential council action for this evening's meeting. So with that, I'll turn any commentary over to the council.
I would like to make a suggestion. Excuse me. I had a few problems with this, obviously. I have my little sticky notes everywhere. My first thing is that if the council is in charge of making ordinances, is this not true? Are we in charge of ordinances
although
as
there
part
are
of our
some
jobs?
state and federal mandated
Right, but as part of our job?
influences, sure. Mhm.
I didn't do any of this. I know nothing about this, and this is the first time I've seen it. So, and I realized I got it 2 weeks ago. I got it when we
Yep.
walked out. But I'm just saying the council didn't make it or didn't have any input into it. It was just provided to us.
Well,
Do you understand my problem?
sure,
My
but
question?
you noted that these are state mandated changes. in the
I
first
did,
paragraph.
and I read the legislation. I went online and read that. I read the options that are coming up in 2020.
Okay.
I still think that I want more time to research it. And there is no penalty if we don't pass it, according to what I've been told.
Other than the fact that in that first paragraph of the second sentence, it says any city that has not adopted these changes prior to December 31st, 2018, may not enforce its business licensing code in 2019 until such time as the required changes become law. I mean, obviously, I don't know exactly what impact that might have, knowing how many licenses may need to be renewed in the city of Vader in January, but you happen to have a sense of what impact it would have if the council doesn't approve it,
Financial impact?
or any impact.
Well, we just wouldn't be able to renew any business licenses, and they're $25 to $50 each. We have 10, I'm guessing 10 or maybe 15 at the most.
So we're not talking earth-shaking amounts,
And business licenses aren't considered late until the 15th of January, right? I think that's kind of like the,
That's what I read.
Right.
That's what it says in here.
yeah, I think the 15th of January.
That's what it says in the new ordinance. I don't know, the
That's
old.
what the new ordinance says. I don't know, I
Yep.
don't remember what the old ordinance says off the top of my head.
Well, that's just kind of my thought, is I'd like to table it until I've had more time to research it. I don't feel comfortable with it. There's a lot of things in here that's, I mean, it's 19 pages. There's a lot to decipher out of it. And I have worked on it. It's just, I just like more time.
So here's the thought. Mhm.
Has anybody gone through to see what changes from the original one that's always been here? Has changed on it?
I haven't.
Not word for word, because the original ordinance was written by a volunteer and did not have a lot of the things that are needed in an ordinance of this type. And so she basically had to rewrite the whole ordinance, but she said she kept all the same ideas that the city had from their original, like the feeling or the type of who would need to get ordinances and or a license and things like that, as much as she could, as long as it wasn't part of what the state was mandating had to change, because they're mandating some of that. But she tried to keep everything the same feel. But there was no process in there for denial of licenses or for appeals for people whose licenses were denied. There was just a lot of missing direction in the ordinance. And so she went ahead and put that in there so that we had a comprehensive ordinance. So it would be very difficult to compare the two as far as making a direct comparison, because I think the one that we have is maybe 2 pages or 3 pages, and now we've got 19. And so, it's definitely much more comprehensive and more complete. And 3 pages of that is a definition that's required by the state. So,
Has it always been the city clerk's responsibility to take care of the license, deny the license, do all of the paperwork end of it if somebody needs to have the license pulled, or has it always been just the city clerk, or all of that, the responsibility of the city clerk?
yes.
Is that normal for all
Yes.
the towns?
Yeah.
That's what I'm told, is that yes, that is normal, because it's an administrative item. You guys as council set the regulations, and then the administration administers it. And my job is to see the things that follow the regulations that you set. And if it doesn't, it doesn't. If it does, it does. And so, I mean, so far I've never had to turn anyone down, I don't think, that I can recall. But if I were to need to turn down a license, it would have to be because it doesn't meet whatever's in that ordinance, and I would have to have, what I would do is provide a legal letter to the person stating why their license is being turned down, and they would at that point have the opportunity to either correct or provide the information that I have, with the information that's needed. And it's not about me personally, it's about the position. Somebody needs to, I just happen to be the head of the office department. And so who else would it make sense to do that?
I don't know, it just seems like a big burden to put on to the city clerk to take care of all of that.
It's a normal part of clerking, is to take care of the licensing. And we take care of the business license, the animal license, the permitting, any of that licensing is administrative.
This paperwork though makes it sound like you may have to actually go to somebody's business and make sure it meets all these requirements and document everything.
No, that's not the case.
But it
I
says you have
wouldn't
to
be going to
allowed.
anybody's occupations and doing any of that.
Then how come she puts it in here?
It's in here.
Those are questions you need to ask her. And that's why she put her information on there so that you guys could contact her and ask her, but no one has contacted and asked her anything. And I can't answer all those questions.
And frankly, I think this is overwhelming.
Okay. We do have somebody who'd like to make a comment. Does council care to entertain comments?
City of Toledo, the planning committee approves the business licenses. The city clerk takes it in and she signs off that she's received it and that it fits whatever she has to look at. Then it goes to their planning committee, and the planning committee takes it to the city council. And Stormy over in Winlock said they do something similar, not quite the same. They don't have to take it to their police department or anything. But, so that's an option in your planning committee, if you want to take it off the clerk's shoulders. Other cities use their planning committee and their city council for approval.
So at some point it comes to the council?
And this thing of theirs is only about 4 pages long.
Which would be fine if you only had 15 business licenses, but if you were a bigger city that had hundreds, it really wouldn't be feasible for a city council to do
We
that.
don't have
But
one
there's
else.
only,
But just because another community does it that way doesn't mean that you have to do it that way. So you have options. There's room and time for analysis.
So I have a, oh, I'm sorry.
Wait, no,
No, that's fine.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, I'm just reading the part of some of the parts about the city. I have another question to you, if you can answer this for me, is the state may mandate coming up with some kind of, but is it this expensive? Isn't it up to the city council to decide what our city needs, requirements for business licenses? And some of the stuff in here sounds to me like it's way above her pay grade. She's not a cop, she's not an attorney, and it leaves a lot to her personal discretion that I don't think should happen. That should have to come before some kind of a committee or something, or I think somebody should be turned down or fined, and I really don't like that part in there where you just walk into somebody's business at any time and you better let them in between the hours of 8 and 5 and they can inspect anything they want to. This is a nasty little ordinance. It doesn't fit Vader.
Okay. Well, hey, I'm sure my only response to that is I think there's a lot of ordinances that are pretty nasty depending on who's reading it, of course. But every city within a state is subject to state legislative laws. And so you could become like a like the city of Buckley is refusing to apply the state's newly approved gun concealed carry permit restraints. But you might then be exposed to some state legal action. But so you do have that. And there are some sanctuary cities in the United States that are defying federal law. But if you make choices like that, then you can probably do it, but then you're free to accept the consequences of it as well. So that's what I
I don't think we're
expect.
going to shoot anybody, or there's no real reason.
No, it's just obviously,
Don't compare it to that.
this isn't a debate, we're just, this is a public city council meeting. So,
What was Joe's comment?
On page 14, 601.190, the license is subject to specific controls. The third line down, subjected to all ordinances and regulations of the city. So that's what this does, right? So not only do you, if you're going to get a business license, you need to abide by the other ordinances and regulations, which is great. So if we don't want to have a junkyard business on A Street, then that's in our ordinance, right? We have that in sub-ordinances. If we didn't have this ordinance overall, would the state of Washington, who would then be our sole business license provider, be under any obligation to come to Vader and ask us what our ordinances are before they approved businesses?
I don't know. I don't think so, but I can't answer that. These are questions for Jennifer.
Yeah.
I really have no clue what that means.
okay,
I have another question.
council?
Yes, please.
Would it hurt just to wait till the first meeting in January to give you more time to look at this and do some research? That's 10 days. It's the 10th of January. It's still before the 15th. And I don't think Jason's going to go out of business in those 10 days. He doesn't have a license. So that's fine.
Point's taken. I don't recall there's anything in this document that places an imposition other than the state of Washington's comment that these were anticipated would be adopted by cities by December 31st. Or you can deal with the inability to enforce your business license codes. But we don't have that many, so the council can certainly make that choice.
The only concern that I have is that no one has contacted the attorney to find out answers to these questions. That was made very clear when I gave each of you. I told you this is so that you can have time to look at it and talk to her ahead of time. And nobody has done that. So I'm concerned that waiting another till 2 weeks into January, is anybody even going to call her and find out?
That $200.
That's an
I have-
open admission.
I would like to comment on that.
Excuses.
Let me comment
I
on
can't
that.
answer those questions, so she's the only one who can.
I went through and read the bill, and I went to MRSC and read what they have a whole blog going on about this. I feel like I just need more research. Do I want to call Jennifer and talk to her? Not particularly, because I think she's pretty much voiced what she has to say in here. And I am educated enough to read in here when it says something that's what she meant. That's what it means. So I don't see that. I particularly need to call her to, I'll use the word, waste more city money for the attorney to find out something that she's going to probably talk in circles to me.
Okay. Well,
So, and that's just my thought, Jill. I realize that you disagree with that, but that's my feeling on it.
I didn't hear her disagree with
No,
that.
she looked at me. We had a
She's
conversation.
the only
just
one
now.
that can draw light on the subject. I mean,
Right,
that'd be the call to make.
exactly.
Well, if you guys want to make a call, I'm not.
Yeah, well, I think the point here is that if you were that curious about it and you discovered that there was a legal resource that could perhaps give you light on it, did you make that phone call?
No, I did not make that phone call.
Why?
I went through MRSC.
Well, so you got information regarding this from MRC?
I went through and read a bunch of their websites and all of the other different things in 2020 that are going to happen of how.
But you still
business
have
licenses-
questions that aren't answered.
I don't like a lot of this, and I think this. And
I think I
if,
agree with Jill and that she gave this to you with the invitation to reach out to our city legal attorney to answer any concerns or questions you've got. So council can certainly decide to put this off until January. I don't think the world is going to stop turning, but don't hesitate to call Jennifer Robertson. She may have written it, and that's I respect her legal judgment, and she might be the best source to answer the questions you've got based on her input on this. So come from the mayor, whose responsibility is to carry out ordinances approved by the council. I give you that permission. Not that you actually need it. But feel free to do it.
Judy, can you share the thing? Just start at the beginning and quickly share the points. I'd like to know. Not that I'm challenging you on them at all.
I know you're not challenging.
I really want to know
Your question.
what issues you have. It seemed pretty black and white.
I do not.
A lot of black and white. But.
One of them in here says that if Jason has a business down there, or I'll use myself. I have a business on the corner of A Street. If I want to go over and open up a satellite office over in there,
Yeah.
I can't do that unless I buy 2 permits.
Yeah, it talked about different.
Licenses.
Yeah, it talked about having
Yes.
businesses in multiple locations.
Right. Well, I think that's very clear, and I disagree with it. So that would be one point.
Is that part of the state mandated language or not?
Where's that at?
I don't believe it
No.
is, Jill, but I don't know
See,
that
that's a
because I don't know
question
what
that
the
she would
other
have to answer.
Where was that at?
accordance is. On page 4, I don't like, and everybody will probably yell and scream, but I don't like number 3. I'm not going to buy a license to have one rental property.
That is state mandated language. It's required to be in there by the state.
Okay, well,
So if we didn't have this, the state would still make someone do it.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay, let's see.
What number 3?
On page 4.
Okay.
I am in agreement with Leona that there is a lot of city clerk on page 7. A lot of city clerk is mentioned throughout. Page 6, I'm not real pleased with number H, home-based businesses. I don't know how that even is in there.
Wait, page 6, number 8?
6H.
Oh, H.
H is in Harry. Number page 8, and I think this is very clear. Number C, and I'll just read it. The clerk shall approve or deny all applications for licenses required hereunder. I don't like the verbiage at all. And on number 9, C, the clerk may cancel any penalties imposed under this section. I don't know that that is an authority that we want to place on the clerk to be able to cancel out penalties and whatever. So, is that enough, Joe?
Keep going.
There's more, okay.
I really want to know.
Number 10, page 10, revoke. The clerk shall have the power and authority to suspend or revoke any registration. Don't like that terminology.
6A, 601, 110A.
Page 10.
At the bottom.
Just that
A.
starts with the clerk that you don't like of it.
No, well, I would rather not see that, but
No,
I-
go
I
ahead.
definitely
It's
am
fine
not-
if that's the problem. We can fix that.
Verbiage is a big thing in here. Okay, council. I would like to see the council have a part in this, because if people come to us, we want businesses, and I'd like for us to have some say in it. And nowhere in here does that say that.
I like
like the idea of the planning committee.
I like the idea of that too, and then bring it to the
I
council.
think that's a good idea. And the planning committee would be a part of
Yeah.
that.
Page 13,
It's really,
number 3 at the bottom.
Don't forget number 3 in the middle. Well,
And Jason.
Oh, Jason, I didn't even put
Oh,
that.
you said-
Give it up. I'm not doing just the clerk thing. I'm doing things that I don't care for the verbiage. Inspections. All licenses shall be open to inspection, including records and required to be maintained by the clerk during license's normal business hours. And Jill says she's not going, so I don't understand why we would have it in here. Um, 14 at the top on the death of license. I've never known the city to be concerned if one or the other of the people died.
death of a licensee.
Yep, look at the top.
Well, doesn't it make sense that there would be a contingency for that, just because it's never
Right.
happened?
Right.
Doesn't it make sense that there would be a contingency that if the licensee passes away,
I don't,
that there's a contingency
business
for what to do?
stops.
Why not have it in there?
Huh?
Why not have it in there?
I don't have an answer to that.
Okay.
Let's see what this one says.
Would there be an issue with meeting with Toledo to see how they do this, so that the clerk isn't responsible for everything to do with business license?
We pursue that to explore the strategies they use. So, sure. Frankly, and I can't imagine, because we know what's the outcome of our code enforcement ordinance that involved the clerk and placed responsibility on her shoulders that eventually became inappropriate and unacceptable. So we made accommodations for that, and this could, based on what you've shared, bring enforcement responsibilities that I would be uncomfortable with our city clerk having to deal with. So, but ultimately, somebody would have to embrace the enforcement elements of this ordinance. So, planning committee will be worth exploring, I think, to see how they enforce it in the city of Toledo. But here again, my experience tells me that if you've been following the state of city management in other small communities in the Lewis County, just because they have it in their ordinance that the planning committees engaging in such things, and that's only 4 pages long, that maybe before they were also required to apply the state thing, and now maybe it's 10 pages long, and who knows what their enforcement challenges are. But so the question was, could we learn something by contacting Toledo? Yeah, sure. We've done that many times in the past. So I'd be in favor of that.
I think it would be really nice to have the citizens of Vader come into City Hall happy and anxious to do something, instead of coming into City Hall because they want to attack Jill because she was forced to be in this position,
Right.
in this position, in this position.
Yeah, I agree.
So is that what we want to pursue? Then we can ask our attorney to change the verbiage to the planning committee for approval. Is that what we want
It
to
seems
do?
like there's
I'm
also
uncomfortable.
several places that she wanted things removed or changed,
Yeah.
other than that as well, so
Was-
those will need to be addressed as well.
Was that all of them, Judy?
Yes.
Okay.
But don't
This
you
crowd's
guys
coming.
agree, and you don't you agree that that puts an awful lot on your shoulders, and
I think she likes it.
with the little tiny bit of businesses and stuff that we
Yeah.
deal with here, I don't think it's crazy. I don't think it's too crazy.
but the planning committee has all these plans for Little Vader to become so much more. And if we're looking into the future, and trying to envision more and more for Vader, don't we want the planning committee to be a big part of that? And the licensings and what kind of businesses are accepted and what's not accepted and that's a committee, that's just not Jill, that's a committee doing something.
Well, I don't see that my role is gonna change very much if you take it to the planning committee. I mean, that's fine, I don't mind. I'm more than happy to let the planning committee make the decision. I'm still gonna have to do all the paperwork. I'm still gonna have to make sure that we have all the documents together so the planning committee can make an informed decision. So I'm still gonna have to do all the same stuff. It's just, I'm gonna have to take it to council or to the planning committee to say yea or nay. And then I will go back, take it all back to the city hall or to my office and issue the permits. I mean, it's not going to really change anything except who says yes or no. And that's fine, because I'm more than happy to give that responsibility to somebody else.
Have you ever had to
Just
say
so
no?
you know.
Have you ever just
I
not?
cannot remember a time when I've ever had
You've
to
never
say
not approved a license?
no.
Because they go
There's
through
been times
Washington.
when I needed more information or needed more, needed their state license or needed to verify things. We've had to do that, but I don't recall a time that I've ever, I mean, I know I've never said straight out, no, you can't do that.
By the time they get here, they already have their state license.
Most of the time.
Yeah, and to finalize the concept here that somebody's mentioned, then having the final determination made by the city council, we need to get our council, our legal attorney's input and interpretation of that, but I'm not sure that we'll discover that the council has the authority to make a final decision on the application of the ordinance. You legislate the ordinances, but I don't know that you'd have the executive. I don't know. I think we might want to get clarification on that. If it's true or not, I think I would be more comfortable finding out for sure. So I add that to the council's consideration. We do have two individuals who indicate an interest in making a comment. Does the council care to entertain those comments? Okay, I think you're first. Okay, go ahead.
I currently am the holder of a business license in Vader. Between the first of the year and the 10th of the month, where you're going to have to do some kind of action on this bill, for lack of a better term.
We don't have to do something.
Well,
we've got.
If I walked in on the 8th and said, oh, I want to renew my business license, and paid my money.
We wouldn't take your money.
Right.
We would tell you we can't do it because we don't have an ordinance to authorize it right now. Just a question.
Oh, we got to another comment.
sorry.
That's okay.
I have two, actually. One is, it's not just a matter of the extra work for Jill, but also taking the heat off of her. If you have a committee making those decisions, and then that committee comes to the city council and says, we've decided to let Joe's Crab Shack start up on A Street, that takes the heat off of her as well. And it's those 3 or 5 people, whatever, that are now in front of them. The second thing is, the city council has made decisions on these type of things before. If you look at our variance ordinance or our building permit ordinances, a lot of times the planning committee makes a recommendation and they bring it to the city council and the city council votes on it. So the city council has done other votes similar to this in the past where they make a decision on something the planning committee has recommended or decided on. So I don't think it's outside the scope of the city council.
No, I don't disagree with that, but what I'm concerned about is the enforcement elements of this ordinance, because I don't think you will see that the council has embraced in our code enforcement ordinance the enforcement elements of that. That once there's enforcement needs, then it falls upon the city administration to carry out the enforcement efforts. I'm not even required by state law to report what enforcement measures are being taken. That's the city administration, the mayor's executive role. That's what I'm referring to. Just having a planning committee make a recommendation is one thing, but then having the compliance on the part of the resident is the issue that I'm concerned about. And I think we need to get some feedback from our city attorney on that issue. So I think there is research that needs to be done. There was another comment?
Well, I think you answered it. Enforcement is the issue. In
Okay.
Castle Rock, that's done by the police.
Hmm.
All enforcement, it's a misdemeanor. If you don't register your business, and enforcement has to be done, and it doesn't get handled well. And you're right, I think that's one of the bigger problems, because the city can miss revenue that way.
Yeah, right. So, but fortunately, I think the overarching observation here is that with the limited number we've got, with that, it could be a problem if somebody wants to renew in mid-January, but I don't know that we have the facts to substantiate that concern. I'm probably pretty confident that the council will address this after we've done appropriate research. We had opportunities to do that before, but that's hindsight. We know that. We're all human beings. Knowing the specific concerns now, I have no qualms collectively researching that now that we're aware of it. Might I remind the council members, when you have these concerns, you must not hesitate at all to either go directly to the attorney if you've been authorized. You don't need authorization, but awareness of it, feel free. But also go and talk to the city clerk or the mayor, and maybe we could work these things out before we get to a city council meeting, where hopefully action will take place. You'll hear that admonishment repeatedly. So, but I think we've reached some sort of action on this particular ordinance. Any thoughts? Would you care that, would you want the mayor and the city administration to reach out to our attorney and address the issues that have been
I
identified?
can't address the issues that she has. She needs to do those. It's gonna cost the same, and it will make more sense to have the person
Sure.
with the question.
But the council has, they've all been informed of the specifics of it. They've requested it, they have it. So, what are your thoughts? Do you prefer to have the city administration reach out and try to get the specifics, or would you want to designate a member of the council, actually? Judy? Joe?
Well, I mean, as far as changes, the largest change that we're talking about here is possibly having the approval done by a group instead of an individual. Correct? If possible.
Yeah.
I mean, if the planning committee or the council is even legally allowed to do that
Yeah.
by our attorney's opinion. So that would be the one change. That would be the biggest change. And then the enforcement is, you're talking about the enforcement issues.
Yeah.
I don't know where we would go to.
Oh, the city attorney would give us clarity on that. But we do have a
Right,
building
but if-
inspector who's currently assisting us in our code enforcement efforts. So
So
that individual could be identified if we wanted to.
So the enforcement could fall on our building official.
Yep. I would think.
Well, as far as
Yeah,
inspections
yeah.
and things like that, if an inspection
Right.
or something needed.
If it was
to happen,
needed, but
Right.
never been needed before.
Mhm. But that would have a financial impact too. But we could address that. I'm not that terribly concerned about it.
So those are the two changes
But
in.
again, the letters and notices and things like that would still fall back on city administration
Yeah.
under the
Yeah.
mayor.
Mhm.
Okay, so there's those two changes. And I know you had a few odds and ends, Judy, that you had problems with, but.
Joe, I have problems with the whole thing I'm trying to tell you. You do not see my little sticky notes and my little notes everywhere. I'm going to, I think I've made my point. I'm going to sit back now and let the other four, I haven't heard Mike say anything. I don't know how everybody else feels. I don't know what you guys want to do. I just know what I wanted to do, so I voiced mine. Do you want to redo this and put down the planning committee or a group making decisions and code enforcement doing that? Are you wanting to pass this tonight? Is that what your thought is?
Overall, it was pretty clear overall. I mean, other than as I read it, I saw that every third word was city clerk. I did see that too, and I assumed that would be a problem.
Could we pass it and then amend it? Would that,
Yeah.
after we've done these, that way remove the potential deadline issue?
But then you have to actually do it.
Let's see.
Oh, sorry.
Yes.
It's one thing to pass something knowing you're gonna change it, but then you have to actually do it, because the other things
Sure.
that you said, oh, well, we'll address it
Okay.
in July.
All right.
So
We've
that's what
done
I'm
that.
saying, is if you actually
I
do
think
it.
history has shown that the city administration is extremely responsive to the council's amendments to ordinances. Code enforcement being a prime example of that. So, but I just shared that. Council, sure, call on it. Just a thought.
I think other than those two changes, changing it from so much city clerk approval to a committee of some sort would be nice. And then, as you were saying, that the code, the enforcement, change that role into our other building official. I think with those two changes, it would satisfy most of the things that we're hearing.
I think so. And
Yeah.
And I realize you'd still have all the paperwork to do, but it would still take you out of the hot seat.
That's fine.
I'm fine with Jill in the hot seat. I think we're just adding more steps to the process, actually.
Yeah, I think we're adding another layer of
I agree, it's gonna
bureaucracy.
take more time and
Should
more
we,
prep to have to get everything together to explain it to the planning committee, but that's fine if that's what you guys want. It really is fine.
a motion to approve contingent upon appropriate changes?
Who knows if these changes are gonna be able to be made? You don't consider it on what the attorney has to say.
Based on what I've heard, I'm pretty confident that we
It
can make
seems
it.
like reasonable, yeah, I don't see why, but, I don't know. If we can't, then what, we wait till the beginning of January and we're right back there again, so.
So we wanted
Motion.
A motion.
You want to tell?
Can you do that? A motion to approve contingent on those two changes, or are those two changes too much
I don't think
to
so.
do in a motion like that without
think
seeing
so.
it?
I'm not comfortable making a motion to approve something that's not
Okay.
in black and white.
Okay.
If too many ifs and too many
Motions can be
variables, then-
submitted, and that's when you vote and you see who does what. But anybody on the council, is free to make a motion, and then let the council vote to determine the direction.
Can we see what Donna has to say from a minute?
Sure.
Thank you.
I wanted to ask if all of this stuff that they put in here, every one of these, are these mandated by the state? Or is this just something the attorney made up that she thinks we should have? Is that
It's a
what's
composite.
going on here?
Yeah, the states has been melded into it, and what takes 3 or 4 pages of the state inserted.
Right, but these are not
Mhm.
written in stone.
The
These are
attorney
up to the
took our
council.
pre-existing-
May I finish, please?
No,
Are these up to the
excuse me,
council, though, to revise?
pardon me, excuse me, I just want to clarify, then you proceed. But like Jill indicated, the city attorney has taken our previous ordinance and made it, modernized it with
I think
the
there's
current
anything about
legalese. Okay, is that your comment?
But I'm trying to find out if this attorney, if this is absolutely written in stone state law, or is this what she thinks would work for this city, which is just, I don't know, to me, it's just my opinion, this is so far out of line with Vader. This is like the
Duly
other,
noted.
and they have that nasty little
Sure.
$250 a day fine in here.
Okay.
too.
All right, thank you for that input.
Is there a reason
Council
we can't meet before the end of December? Is there a reason the 27th is crossed out? Is there a reason we can't take care of this and find out what the attorney has to say and maybe get it settled before December 31st?
Good.
Council, could do that.
You're more than welcome to hold
Was there
another
going to be
council
too many
meeting.
people gone? Or was there a reason? Was it just our Christmas present?
Typically, that's what we have done in the past, is try to, because of people being gone and Christmas and all that stuff. I do have the week of Christmas off, so I will be gone that week personally, but that doesn't mean you guys couldn't hold.
Right.
We'd have to get it all done and prepared before I left.
I will not be in the area next week either, so, but after that, I would.
I'm fine meeting on the 27th. If we get this cleaned up and put it on the agenda, just a really short agenda.
Do you know if the attorney's gonna be around?
I haven't asked her. Typically, if she's gone, she will still handle things that it needs to be handled, so.
Will somebody make a motion, please?
Do we need a motion, or do we just direct the city
Let's see if
to
I've got a consensus.
make those changes?
There ought to be a motion to schedule a subsequent city council meeting to address the topic.
I'll make a motion to have a meeting on December 27th to settle this business ordinance.
Okay. Time, 6 o'clock.
Sure.
Okay.
We could do it we could do it earlier. I mean, it doesn't have to be 6 o'clock.
Well, okay. We've
6
heard a
a.m.
motion
I'll be here.
Submitted by Councilman Shy to hold a special city council meeting on December 27th. Is it 27th?
That's a Thursday, right?
Mhm.
Thursday at 6 p.m. to address this specific agenda item, the ordinance 2018-05. That capture the motion? All right, with that, do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Mrs. Costello. Any additional thoughts, comments at this moment? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed?
Aye.
Okay, the motion carries by 4 in approval and 1 in opposition. So duly noted. All right, so item number 2. Finalize the property tax levy for 2019 and consider ordinance 2018-06, property tax levy for 2019, and the sub-item resolution 17-2018, the bank property tax levy capacity. I know that from our previous council meeting, I can remind all present that a decision was reached, and now we've formalized those decisions relating to the property tax in the form of this ordinance and that resolution. So I turn the time over to the council for their considered action.
I move to approve ordinance 2018-06 to confirm the 2019 property tax levy rate substantially as written.
Heard the motion submitted by Mr. Shy to approve ordinance 2018-06, ordinance as written, as noted. Do we have a second for that
I'll
motion?
second it.
Seconded by Mr. Daly. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed?
Yes.
Wait, who was in opposition? Okay, we had 4 in the affirmative, 1 in the negative. Okay, the motion carries. Now, resolution 17-2018.
I move to approve resolution 17-2018 to bank levy capacity pursuant to RCW 84.55.092 substantially as written.
Again, you've heard a subsequent motion by Mr. Shy to approve resolution 17-2018 substantially as written. Do we have a second for that motion?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Mr. Parsons. Council conversation.
Yes.
Go ahead.
This is the extra money left over, which will go back into the little account to be used at another time. Has absolutely nothing to do with the one we just passed. Thank you.
Any other council comments? Okay. Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Okay, that motion is carried unanimously. Thank you. That was Bishop. Okay, council, now to consider ordinance 2018-07, the 2019 final budget. We have 2 sub-items, sewer rates, item A, and sub-item B, salary schedule. And I would note that it was brought to the council's attention some financial figures relating to the city attorney, so I'd throw that in there for council deliberation. But I needn't remind the council that we had 3 previous council meetings and 3 public hearings, 2 workshops relating to this budget, and I am again share my thoughts that this budget, as I've analyzed it and done similar over the past 10 years, is one of the more healthy financial budgets, and I stand by it and affirm the information that's in it to the best of our knowledge, and thank our city staff for the work and labor that's gone into it. So with that, I turn this agenda item over to the council. We do have comments before the council's even begun their deliberations. Does the council want to entertain comments?
Sure.
Okay, I think
I just want to know if the raises were already in the budget. So that $10,000 will have to take from another line item, is that how that works?
they're, to the best of my knowledge, they're not in the budget. They were brought to the council's attention. But
It's not worked in
if, you know, maybe since it's been mentioned, I would note that I've given it some thought and gotten feedback from individuals, and my suggestion would be that we discontinue current council deliberations on the salary adjustments. But we can do that at any time during the calendar year. And understanding the sensitivities of the topic and complexities that it adds to the council's discussion, I would suggest that we revisit that specific item sometime after New Year, maybe early or mid-January. So,
Well, at that point, where would we get the $10,000 out of the budget to pay these folks if we went for the
well,
increase?
they would still be there. There's flexibility in this budget. I think that we mentioned that at the last council meeting. So I'm not too concerned, because the majority of the increases would come from the sewer treatment revenue, which has ample flexibility to cover those increases. That's primarily relating to Mr. Wilson, if you recall, the Public Works employee.
Right, but you know, are you guys okay if I talk?
It's your meeting.
Okay.
Always okay with you talking.
Here, sometimes I feel bad when I do this. I really do. I want you to know this. I truly do. But I have questions. Okay, in January, we took $10,000 out for code enforcement from the sewer. We then came in
Expended
and...
$3,700 of that $10,000.
Right, but it's still sitting there. It came out.
We have a plan.
I,
Yeah, but I'm,
okay, I need to...
It's open.
Okay, it's okay, Mary Ann, it's okay.
oh, I know it's okay.
10,000 is there, and then we went 10,000 on new computer system or programming, which came out of the sewer. 8,000 and some change, and then 2,500 for the tech support. So that's kind of like a $10,000 built-in. And then we have, and I know this doesn't sound like much, but if you give everybody a $1 raise, that sounds pretty okay to me, until you add it all up. And when you add it all up, and then you add the benefit package, because that has to go up also, now you're at another $10,000 for the year.
Yeah, but that's one of the concepts.
And it comes out of the
We
sewers.
wouldn't discuss that as far as this budget is concerned, this topic this evening. We could address that in 2019 if the council desires. So I've dropped that from the concerns.
Well, it concerns me though, is the problem. That's why I'm having a hard time looking it.
But the other two topics that you mentioned, I think need to be addressed before the council approves the budget, right?
What?
So the first two items that you mentioned,
Oh, we've already approved the computer system and the, and we did the code thing already. That's already done. I'm just merely stating that when I totaled all the big world, I see 30,000 coming out of the sewer this year.
Okay.
Well, do we have money somewhere that I'm not noticing? Is it hiding somewhere? It must be.
Well, I don't know, look at all these different budgets you've
I know, I got them, and they're just wild. If I put them all together, it might work. I'm just...
We approved those individually. We went through the budget, we found the money, and we approved them at the time.
out of the sewer system, out of the sewer money.
Because they were sewer-related
Exactly.
expenses.
You
I
have to
realize,
do
I
that.
realize that attitude. I'm just really,
But there is ample fundage. We can meet the 30-day state audit.
We meet-
hope
We meet
expectation.
60 days.
Yes, we're almost at 60 days. So,
Okay, so we're tabling the salaries for now, so we don't, that's not an issue,
Not
right?
an issue.
Okay, that part. Okay.
okay, so now we're at the sewer rate.
And since we have ample money in our sewer rates, I don't know why we're talking about raising them $2.
well,
Because it's,
oh, we do, we have an urgent
Yes,
thought.
is this a, one of those, or?
You know, I realize a lot of these meetings I wasn't at. And I would have reserved my comment for the public comment section. But because sewer rates and the salary schedule are of my concern, and the 50 people that are low income in Vader, the sewer rates are already going up. Every billing cycle, they're going up, going up, going up, with no thought to these low-income people or people that are on fixed incomes.
Okay.
Same thing with the salary scheduling, you've already decided what you're doing with that. But there again, that comes out of all the public money, and we're looking at 50 residents in Vader of low income. So I just would like to remind you to think about that when all these rates start going up. Because I know we have to pay, you know, we need our sewer system, et cetera, but that's something to be considered.
Okay.
Keep in mind that we have to get some of these grants that we're going to be applying for. Our sewer rates that we charge our customers have to meet a certain threshold. If we're not charging enough by whatever standards the grant providers need, then they'll say, we don't need to give you a grant, you just need to charge your customers more. So we need to charge a certain amount to meet this threshold. On top of the fact that we do have loans that are going to be coming due in the not too distant future, that and we're going to need to have higher rates anyway.
Yes.
And if we accumulate money now, then we can pay on that loan or that bill when we get it.
but we've talked many times about how we don't know what we're gonna get granted. We don't know what we're gonna get loaned, so how, I know, we don't even know if it's all gonna be granted, then we're not gonna have these extremely high rates that we're projecting for right now. So how are we, in my mind, how are we billing the current residents of Vader for something that, you know, in 2 years from now, we may have?
Well, there are certain expenditures that we do know we're going to have, and there are certain loans that we've already taken out that we have yet to begin paying on.
And that's what you see, if you look at your projections, that big long sheet,
Right.
and let me call mine out. That's
Yeah, I
where
don't
you
want
will
to turn
see.
the page.
That's where you-
That's what I mean. I mean, those are just projections.
Those blue arrows at the bottom
Yeah.
show when those bills have to start being paid, getting paid. The only one that's unknown right now is the very bottom one, which is the construction loan. That's the only one that we don't know. All the other ones we know. We already have agreed to, and we need to pay.
So we know in 2021 that to be able to make our commitments for loans that we've already taken, we need to be at $80.
That's where we're at.
And I sense a little missing. Well, go ahead.
I just wanted to clarify, if you know folks that are low income and struggling with these bills, they can get help. They can get help from the city. They just need to come in and say, I need help paying this bill. They can get it. They just have to be willing to give that information they may not be happy giving out. But it is there. It is possible for them to get help.
Exactly.
So, you know, they don't have to feel so stressed out about these bills because it's for them.
Well, you know, and I see that there's no cap on that. The bill goes up every billing cycle. There's no cap on it. Like you say, it's a projection of the future, and I understand where that's coming from. But there's no cap on this. Keep going up and up and up and up and up, and then we're faced with this
Well, let me,
2020 thing.
we've gone through this discussion when we had the public hearing. We had 3 of them. And I understand it's sympathetic to the fact you weren't here, but really we need to maintain our clarity in the fact that you heard the State Department of Commerce representative, Kathy Reed, explain that we are approaching the fund financing portion of our project. And that she cited figures that the loan agencies require us to have in order to qualify for a higher percentage of grant funding. And the figure was at 74 to 76, and we're right on that cusp. And so and this is all part of an ongoing long-term plan. We started this 6 or 8 years ago. The planned increases, that's why it's delineated in your accounts here. This is all part of a plan. And none of us wants to raise anything, of course. But when you say there's a ceiling, there's no ceiling on it, the reality is that you can come back and once you get a system installed, for example, and if your rates, the state sees that they're paying X amount, and the $2 that we're adding puts us safely in that category. Then Kathy Reed actually insinuated for the first time I ever heard her say that with the amount that our residents are having to pay, we may very well end up with 100% grant funding. Oh, I don't believe, I'm not so naive as to believe that we would get that. But if we did get that, because we took a $2 increase now, in 2 years the loan grant funders would say, this city is already strapped with what they're paying, let's give them more grant funding. If we ended up with 0, then this council could come back and say, hey, we don't have to pay anything for it. Let's consider reducing or putting a cap on it. Then we could. So this is a short-term sacrifice to potentially get a long-term gain. And we discussed that as a council. I want to remind you of that. This is I don't want to pay $2 more. I'm on a fixed income too. So, but we've got to use good sense and judgment here. And the council you're the elected voices of the people. And I think you've heard the voices of the people. And 50, I know that that's a number that you put marked, and I trust the numbers, but they haven't been verified. It could be 20, it could be 30, it could be 40, it could be 10, I don't know. But the fact is, you get to make hard decisions. But you're intelligent, you've won the trust of the people. I hope that you embrace the wisdom and the foresight that's gone into this budget. So that's it. We have other thoughts from the one here? Okay, I think you were
question. For people that are low income,
yes.
Is there some kind of mechanism, shall we call it, to
Yes.
take that into account, the rates paid for the sewer?
Yes. There's a low-income fee adjustment that's fixed. People will come in and sure, admittedly it's low, but the city council, as you probably know, could adjust that if you wanted to engage in an analysis of that. Am I right? Okay. So we know it's low comparatively speaking. But council could adjust that, and certainly. So the answer is yes, I can tell you that. Yeah.
I believe Jill said last time that the low-income threshold for sewer was $11,000 a year, which is less than $1,000 a month income. That's pretty low.
What I just said, right? It is low. We know
Right.
that.
So there's a lot of people that might be considered low income and barely making ends meet. If they make $1,000 a month, that's too much. They wouldn't qualify for the low income rates.
Well, right.
So,
And who can adjust that?
well, the council can, but my point is that we can't always say that, well, these low income people, it's still $1,000 a month is still pretty low. And they would have to pay the full amount.
Okay. Thank you for that. Okay. Council.
I move to approve ordinance 2018-07, adopting the annual budget for the city of Vader for the calendar year 2019. without any
motion.
changes.
Submitted by Mr. Shine to approve the ordinance 2018-07, 2019 budget, and as noted, as written. So is there a second for that motion?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Mr. Parsons. Council discussion, other thoughts, considerations? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
No.
I heard 3 in approval, 2 in opposition. The motion carries. And so I thank you, Council. I'm extremely confident that, and rest assured that the final word from the mayor, who administers these ordinances, that if you want to amend this budget, you can do it at any time. So I hope that gives you some sense of, to alleviate any concerns you might have. Great. Okay. With that, let's proceed with our last agenda item.
Can I ask a real quick question? Now, we passed this and we're done with the copy mess with it. We need more copies of the budget, right?
I will give you a final copy probably halfway through January, once we close out the end of
Yes.
the year.
You know why there's adjustments on it, right?
But we can at any point go in and readdress an issue on the budget, correct, as the council?
You guys can make amendments to any ordinance.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yep.
We could change the whole
That was
thing.
my question.
We could change the whole thing on the next meeting if you wanted to.
No, I don't want to.
No, but you could. Yeah. And
I think the biggest thing about this is we're actually approving the final numbers, not all of the disbursements everywhere.
Yes.
And that's the final numbers balance. Everything else can be adjusted as we go throughout the year.
Well said.
Because, I mean, we've done it multiple times. Don't look shocked, Judy.
I beg your pardon? Please do not pick on me.
Well, I'm not picking on you. You just went,
I did not.
what?
I'm sitting
Okay.
here waiting for this conversation to be over.
Well, all right.
But what I'm saying is that we have changed, we have pulled money from other things in that budget to take care of something else. We just adjust it as we go if we need to. But the final numbers are what we need approved and done. So
That you would agree with that, right? That is correct. So, yep. And this is a healthy budget that I didn't hear noted, but we should have. I'm breaking the Robert's Rules of Order that when the final vote is taken on an issue, we must not come back and revisit. So I'm going to discontinue my comment. So, thank you. With that, let's proceed now with our public comment.
Nope. The limb. You got to talk about the yard waste.
Right, I jumped over that.
The hot topic.
It's a hot topic. So,
The mayor already has one. I gave him one.
yes, right. You'll recall in our last council meeting that you asked that we identify possible properties owned by the community that you might feel would serve as an alternate sort of placement. I have to candidly tell you that I thought I knew where most of the vacant properties are, but I was pleasantly surprised to see that there were several I was not aware of. I know you haven't had time to study this, so that may be something you want to, but may I point out at the outset of this conversation that I've gone over this fairly closely, and I thought there was a property at the end of 10th Street. That's at the bottom of page 2. It's 2.1 acres. The bottom section, a triangular, it's like a stealth bomber. There's no access to it that we're aware of from north, south, east, or west. So it wasn't where I believed it was. So that may not work. But I would quickly invite you to look on page 1. Yes, this is the next to the north of the water plant. City owns all of that property. The center of it has been cleared of trees, and it would not be, I believe, difficult to create an access point at that. And it, to me, seems to be a potentially viable location.
Is that across the street from the water treatment? Or
Just
It's
north.
just
Same
up
side.
the hill from
Same
it.
side.
It all used to be one piece,
Yeah.
but when the county took over the water department, we split it and they kept the part with the water plant on it and we got the part with the trees on it. And the cell, or the cell tower. That's the little corner down there at the bottom. It's got the cell tower on it.
And it's 3.1 acres.
What was the size of the sewer plant?
75.
No, I mean, what we're using currently.
Oh,
That was what we were using currently.
it wasn't even our property.
Nothing?
Not even a quarter of
I
an
didn't
acre
even
over
look
there.
exactly what it was.
Probably 100 by 75.
Chunk right there.
Boy, 3 acres, we could go into business.
Yeah.
Set up a mulching.
So this park road
Areas.
introduced to the Still Farmer,
We don't
is that
see
the
access.
park?
No,
Oh, that's
no,
the
the
park.
park's
Oh.
different.
The different park is on the very back. That's the park road part.
Oh, I'm doing that, oh, thank you.
We'd be limited there because it's,
You can't use that for,
yeah, it's public park. However, please note on that same page, the two slivers, that they connect. The top one is actually on the bottom. And we don't know exactly how wide that is, but we don't know for sure that that's actually part of that project. And I think, Mr. Parsons, you know that piece quite well. The people at the end of F Street who are in Enchanted Valley,
Is that where that road is right there?
yes, it's got the barricade.
Oh, where those people are living?
Yes.
Mhm.
We think that sliver is west of
yeah.
that property.
This scale is correct. This 60-foot scale, that puts that sliver at 20 feet wide.
I had an 8-foot wide
15?
section on my property that I was paying extra taxes for.
It's enough to
I
back
mean,
a
we
truck
can find
into.
out, I just didn't have time to look into it yet.
Oh, I see, we've got the
Yeah.
scale.
I could
It's
probably
not
check
real
with the
wide.
assessor's office and get what the exact measurement is.
Well, I'm intrigued enough to want to know what we could do with that. So it's a thought, something to consider.
Okay.
There, that's all I would share with you before you begin your deliberations. Or you can continue it later. I don't sense that there's a huge, during the middle of winter, you make a decision tonight.
Water treatment plant.
I like that too.
I like it.
Yeah, if we could get back far enough where it wouldn't be an eyesore, in between chipping time and if the
Drain time.
compost started smelling before I could move it to my wetlands, it wouldn't disturb me.
Why don't we just set it up right there?
Oh. Okay. The one thought I had is that I have spoken with the residents north of that plant. They're sensitive to what the city does on that property. So we can't guarantee that they may not have some problems with it, but nonetheless, it's 3 acres, and we could deal with that if the time came, so just so you know.
I'm sure they would be willing to work with us on the days we had the chippers there running all the hours and everything.
Oh, only 4 hours a month.
Yeah, well, we won't find out unless you ask. So
Give
with
them
that,
free chips.
see, an enticement there. Okay, then any action? I saw concurrence. 1, 2 were supported, 3 were supported.
I'm impressed.
Should we,
We've got lots of possibilities here.
would the council care that we press ahead and do some research and study and analysis on maybe how to make an access route to it?
Definitely.
At the water plant?
On the water plant.
Yeah.
Okay, then with that, I don't think we need a motion on that yet, no specific action. So we will initiate that process. Thank you. Any other thoughts on item 4?
Are we going to talk about it at our next meeting, maybe? Not our 27th meeting, our January meeting?
I think we could. After January, we should be able to do the research. I think it's mostly it's a county road. It's think it's a county
There's a
road.
pull off right there, so I mean, we got
Right, yeah. They built a mound, so you can't drive over. We'd have to get in there and grade it, I'm sure, but that can be done. We'll research it. Okay, with that, then let's proceed with our public comment.
We have 5 people on the list.
5.
Yes, first is Julie Smith.
My name is Julie Smith. I am the mayor's wife, and I just have a few comments as an observation these last 7 years. I just want to thank the city council and the city staff for the hard work that they do. You can kind of think of Vader as the good ship Vader, and we have this crew that keeps the ship going forward, and we're all on board. And it is really a lot of hard work that they do to keep the city healthy and strong, and for our elected people to do the things that they do. They have to study all the laws and the rules. They have to follow them, and there's always reasons why things are done the way they are done. And I think we have remarkable people that will listen to anyone, and they will try to do the things that they need to do. I admire this city council because they carve time out of their really busy lives to be here and to try and absorb all this technical stuff. Appreciate you for doing that. And I also believe in you. You were elected by our city, and when these questions, and you feel the weight of this responsibility, I know, and you care, I believe that you will come up with the right decisions. And for that reason, I'd like to make a comment that we elected you, we did, and I would strongly suggest that there be other ways for the public to talk to you about the issues that you are deliberating on besides the business time of city council meeting. Because we did not elect them, we elected you to make these decisions, and I have confidence in you. But I believe the input from the community is important. But there has to be a better time to do it than while you are all trying to make decisions. I make that observation on that. I also think that there's so many things that could that can cause this ship to fail. A lawsuit, all these things can make it almost impossible. There was a time when my husband was first the mayor that we didn't have a budget that balanced, and we had volunteers running City Hall without any salary, just to keep this city alive. And we were all clinging to a raft, and that's very hard. Judy, you were there. That was hard. And so it is possible to get on that raft, and we want to stay strong as a community, as a city. And we as citizens, myself, I regret that I'm not here more, because more often than not, all you get to support you here are people who are finding fault or even demeaning and your character, or even as proclaiming things that aren't true. And there's not enough of people who would be supportive.
Right, but your time has run out. The council care to
Oh, go ahead. Keep saying nice
just
things.
you're about done.
Yeah, because I'm next.
I respect that. I'll wrap it up. I just make a plea for unity. And as a citizen, that we have a responsibility as citizens of Vader to support what is already there and add to it, not tear it down to make it different, but to add to it. And that's my comments. Yeah.
Clap for that.
Okay. Oops, okay. Next.
Cindy Red.
Okay.
Walk slower. Sam's got to go down.
Cindy Radcliffe, 1027th Street. I've seen in other council meetings that I've been to lately that the city does a end-of-year accomplishment list, and I think that would be great for Vader maybe to not only put together, but also publish so people can see some of the things that you have accomplished this year. And, you know, I know, as well as other people know, that you have accomplished things that maybe we should be telling others about. Second, I've noticed both in this chamber and also on social media that a lot of comments are made about, well, let's be nice to the city council because they're not paid, they're volunteers, they're putting a lot of time and effort into this. I know that you five were aware that you're not getting any money for this little venture, but that doesn't mean that the city, citizens of the city shouldn't be able to come here and tell you our concerns and things that we don't like you're doing, or things that we do like you doing. So I don't want it to be considered all negative. If I tell you I don't like your shirt or I make it personal, that's one thing. But if I'm talking about city business and I don't like you raising taxes or I don't like you raising fees, it's not personal. It's just that I don't agree with you politically. So I don't think it should be made as a negative that citizens come up here and say things that you may not care for, you may not agree with. We're just telling you our opinion.
Merry Christmas. Last one.
She means it.
I will tell the council that our next, we're putting a newsletter out with all of the accomplishments and what we hope to accomplish in 2018. So it's already in
Oh, nice.
construction. So,
Good.
yeah, it's good. So,
Donna Rogers is next.
Oh, yeah, some of you guys are too nice tonight.
Oh.
Being at this end of the year.
well, all right.
Another
I give you a present.
Linda Newton, did you still want to comment?
Actually, I already made my comment, and I
Yeah.
thank you all for indulging me with my comments on the sewer rates and the employee wages. Thank you.
Ooh.
Okay, and then last is Patty McVeigh.
Oh, okay.
I want to thank all of you. I've been wanting to move here, as the mayor knows,
Yes.
Jason knows, for 5 or 6 years. I had to leave the area to take care of my family in Indiana, and so I couldn't make that move. And I'm announcing tonight that not only am I going to move here, and I want council's advice, I am starting a business here. I'll be handing out my cards. I have an existing business, and I'd like to move it here. And I'm going to need council's advice on this. I'm looking for a location within the city for a yurt resort. And the yurt, I don't know if any of you know what a yurt is. How many do not know? Everybody knows. That's good. So, the yurt resort would be for survival training for young teenagers. And I've talked to some retirees in the area that have law enforcement background, and they're very interested in helping young teenagers learn how to survive in a simplified life. Thinking of, for instance, if you can imagine this, 5-gallon solar showers hanging from trees for showering, porta potties. Very simple survival and an appreciation of nature, and to occupy them and give them some different ideas about what's possible for them, and also what's possible for them in law enforcement and in public service. So I'm looking for, just for all of you to know, and I wanted to talk to the council about that, I'm looking for 5 to 30 acres to place the yurts. And I'd like it near restaurants and shopping, but we're going to keep it simple. And the children would come maybe, not all the time, but summertime. We might do some winter vacation time, thinking of times that parents would enjoy having those teenagers learn something. It's a little different than what I'm doing today. Today I'm doing tours and much more. This is called Adventures Unlimited. Tours and Much More takes, it's bus trips for senior women. Oh, and time up. So I'm throwing out to the council in case there is any city property that could be purchased, or anybody that hears or knows of local property, 5 to 30 acres, could start small and expand within the city to make a very simple place.
Well, thank you for
Okay.
that.
And I'll pass out cards
Okay, please,
to the mayor's
do
wife.
that.
Law enforcement, all
So,
that.
there's no other public comment, so let us definitely, after the meeting is over, maybe you could distribute that and give it to
This is my business now, but it will be called Adventures Unlimited.
okay. Let's conclude our council meeting, which I would declare adjourned at 7:35 p.m. Thank you for your attendance, and Merry Christmas to all.